What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the channel. As the day after the Mets finished their complete choke of the 2025 season, the New York Mets have major changes going to happen this offseason. And that is exactly what needs to be done. And right now, just basically an hour after the Mets lost to the Marlins for nothing in very undramatic fashion, Andy Martino reports that the Mets have no plans of firing Carlos Mendoza. I'm somewhat on board with that, but I also believe that this isn't all Mendoza's fault. This has a lot to do with David Stearns. Yes, Mendoza didn't have a good year, but ultimately, I think he was put in a really bad spot with the roster construction from David Stearns, among other things, where he could not trust basically anybody in this pitching staff. And that is the problem that I think Carlos Mendoza ran into in the 2025 season. So, Andy Martino officially states, and he tweeted this, Carlos Mendoza is safe from the coaching changes that will happen on the New York Mets staff come 2026. Then he reported also that with the coaching changes that are going to happen, who are they going to be? Is there going to be major coaching changes? Is Hefner gone? Is Chavez gone? Barnes, Gibbons? There's a lot of guys out there that are under Carlos Mendoza. And as I said in many shows before, the scapegoats are going to be the coaching staff. Everybody under Carlos Mendoza. I think you're gonna have a new pitching coach, new hitting coach, new bench coach. That is the first scapegoats of any organization is the lower part of the coaching staff. That's just how it works. And if Carlos Mendoza is safe, as per Andy Martino, then I find it hard to believe that Gibbons, Barnes, Chavez, and Hefner will all have a job in the coming days. And you know what? It might just well have happened. It might happen today, as David Stearns speaks at 3 p.m. today at Citi Field. It just might happen today. We might have a whole new coaching staff this offseason rather quickly. I think you have to get this coaching staff together. I don't know who they're talking about. Maybe it's a Carlos Mendoza with Carlos Beltran as his bench coach. That's an option. Obviously, Carlos Beltran was a New York Mets manager for a few days before the scandal came out with the Houston Astros, and then he was let go. So what are the Mets going to do here? Because it can't just be coaching changes and everybody's going to be okay with that. Now, Met fans will get excited because Met fans have been calling for Hefner's head, Chavez head, Barnes' head for months, let alone years, with those three guys. John Gibbons was kind of on the side. Nobody really cared much about him, but I think he was crucial into last season, helping Carlos Mendoza out in his first year. And this year, I think it unraveled because I think the roster construction was poorly put together. And I think David Stearns put the manager in a terrible spot. When you lead the league in optioning players, specifically in your bullpen, how can you continue to trust guys in your bullpen that Mendoza probably even shake hands with in spring training? You don't even know these guys. And they're constantly going in and out from the minor league system to the major league roster constantly throughout the season. That is not something that a manager should be dealing with on a consistent basis. And on top of that, they used the most amount of starters in baseball. Carlos Mendoza had basically nobody to trust. And then when Peterson started to fall apart, he basically had not one starter he can trust every time that pitcher hit the mound. Until Nolan McLean came up, there was nobody he can trust. And unfortunately, Nolan McLean could only pitch every fifth or sixth day. That is the problem with this overall situation that David Stearns put Carlos Mendoza in. And again, there's going to be heads rolling. The scapegoats are going to be the coaching staff. I said this for a while. This is the first line of defense for David Stearns to shut up the fan base. I said this for a while. people didn't want to believe that, and people just assumed that that is the only thing that needs to be done, or at least the majority of things that have to be done. This team has a lot of work. We're going to have a ton of free agents in our bullpen. We're going to have a very bare bullpen. You got to sign a lot of guys for this bullpen. A lot of guys are free agents. Diaz is probably opt out. There is a lot of holes in this bullpen that you have to revamp. That's why one-year deals are very dangerous for bullpens. It doesn't always work, and it clearly didn't this year. Basically, every bullpen arm is a free agent. Yeah, you have Braziban. Dylan Ross will probably be a part of this bullpen. Who knows with Diaz? Not a lot of guys here that are sticking around. They're all free agents. Let alone you got guys like Griffin Cannon now out of the, obviously a free agent. He might not be back until the middle of the year, but you understand the point. Frankie Montas is done for next year as well. So not only do you have to revamp it, entire bullpen, and sign it or possibly trade for a bunch of guys just to get bullpen arms into the bullpen for 2026, you probably have to look at the rotation, because I don't know if you agree, but I definitely am very positive about this and very confident in this. Kodai Senga will not be on this team. He quit on this team, and there is no way he can be a part of this rotation in 2026. So, guys, as I said while I opened the video, Andy Martino said that there's several changes coming to the coaching staff. He also said that Carlos Mendoza is safe. That was multiple reports last night, not too long after the game, about an hour after the game. He tweeted these within hours of each other that he was going to report some changes, some news coming down from the New York Mets. And this was something that was clearly thought about weeks ago. David Stearns already had this in his back pocket, because the first thing the fans are going to complain about after they bitch and moan about the players and the lack of hitting and the lack of good pitching, they're going to turn right to who is getting fired. And a lot of people wanted Carlos Mendoza to get fired. That's not going to happen. Again, you can't keep on firing coaches, managers every 2 years and expect stability in this rotation, in this organization. You just can't. You cannot have that. At some point, you got to have stability here. And with David Stearns not going anywhere, there's no reason to fire Carlos Mendoza, because you're going to fire another manager and you got to bring in another manager. And with guys like Lindor still here, Soto still here, Nimmo still here, who knows about Alonso? It's a lot of moving parts in another year that does not need to have that many moving parts when it comes to another manager. There's stability in the front office, which I don't necessarily agree with. I don't trust David Stearns to make the moves necessary to make this team what it should be. You can't have one of the highest payrolls in baseball and have that many holes you had in 2025. That cannot happen. You had opportunities in the offseason to fill major holes, and you also had the trade deadline to fill major holes. And the biggest culprit of this team's collapse was the starting pitching. And he did absolutely nothing to help that at the trade deadline. So Carlos Mendoza is safe. Changes coming to the coaching staff. How much change? We'll wait and see. David Stearns speaks later today, this afternoon at Citi Field for a post-season interview for the New York Mets, and we'll see what he's going to say. Maybe he already will talk about changes when it comes to the coaching staff. I want to thank you guys for watching, and as always, Met fans, let's go Mets.